We're starting to see the effect of the calls for impeachment against Donald Trump by the Democrats. The story 2 days ago was that Trump raised $13 million after Pelosi made the announcement. In actuality, the GOP raised $1 million in 6 hours, but we actually have an update from this story. You know, this is one I see people sharing this. It's old. It's actually $15 million. So here's the thing. Nancy Pelosi said in her announcement, or at some point, that she believes Trump is trying to goad the Democrats into calling for his impeachment because it will rally his base. And it will. And it has. Case in point, $15 million. I think there's a lot of reasons why this is very, very good for Donald Trump and why it was a huge mistake. However, polls are turning against Trump. A Harris X poll and an NPR poll are both showing that support for impeachment is way, way up. And this is mostly from people who are unsure. Now, this is bad because these are polls I've cited before. And look, you can choose not to trust them. I'm going to lean towards trusting these polls because I've cited them on many occasions. And look, the polls may or may not be wrong, but here's the point. The people who are turning on Trump or who are now joining in calls for impeachment were those who were unsure before. This is not Trump's base. Trump's base is being fired up. I believe the big strategy here might be to get people who Trump knows will support him. And I've said this before, that Trump is willing to damage himself, like when he called out the squad and made offensive comments. It does hurt him among certain voters, but it does rally his base, and it causes more damage for the other side. I believe the impeachment may hurt Trump in some respects, but as a whole, this is going to be really, really good for Trump and his base. And let me break it down. Let's start by reading about the $15 million in donations as of today, since they started this, and I want to look at the polls. But here's the thing. While the polls may show danger ahead for Trump and his supporters, I really do think it's exactly what Trump wanted. And I think these new polls are good news for Trump. I mean it seriously. It sounds weird, but trust me. Let's get started. Let's read this. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address, but of course, the best thing you can do is share this video. I know for the most part, it's just my opinion, but I want to highlight some of the bad news for Trump. I also want to highlight why I think some of this is going to turn out well for him and why. But that means I'm going up against Fox, who has been in chaos, apparently, over the impeachment hearing, and other mainstream platforms that YouTube props up at the expense of independent political commentary. So if you like this content, please consider sharing it, but let's read the news. From Fox Business. In the few days since House Speaker Nancy Pelosi opened an impeachment inquiry into President Trump, Republicans have capitalized on conservative outrage, pulling in millions of dollars in donations. As of Friday, Trump's 2020 reelection campaign received $15 million in small donations, including $50,000 from new donors, according to a tweet from Eric Trump. Well, I know the left is going to say they're all crooks, but considering it's federal election law, I'm going to have to go ahead and say he's probably on the level. $50,000 from new donors. Is that $50,000 from new donors? At the very least, this has rallied people to Trump, which is interesting, especially going into the polls. Let's read on. Unbelievable numbers, he tweeted. Keep it going. You and the Dems are handing real Donald Trump the win 2020. Pelosi announced on Tuesday the House would launch a formal impeachment inquiry against the president, accusing him of betraying the oath of office by pressuring Ukraine into open investigation into former Vice President Joe Biden, a frontrunner for the Democratic presidential nomination. Technically, it's hard to parse a lot of what Trump does because Trump is a savvy businessman. The most important thing for his supporters and for his opponents is to realize Trump keeps things vague on purpose. When they're vague, you can't necessarily accuse him of doing something he didn't say it overtly. That's a clever strategy used by a lot of top business people. Let the other people make the assumptions and only correct them if you have to. In this instance, the assumption from the left is that Trump is trying to knock out a political opponent. The assumption from the right is that Trump is simply looking into the corruption that's been going on, draining the swamp. It's exactly what they want to see. Everyone's going to have their bias. But in the end, the question is, will this be good for Trump in the end? My opinion, yes, absolutely. Aside from the money, let's read on. They say, 24 hours later, Trump's reelection campaign and the RNC raked in a combined $5 million, according to Trump's campaign manager, Brad Parscale. The National Republican Congressional Committee, meanwhile, said its online fundraising was up 608% 6% on Friday. Listen, Nancy Pelosi, here's a story from the Daily Caller. They say Pelosi has said she believes Trump is goading Democrats to impeach him because he thinks it will help him fire up his base. It did. 608% for the National Republican Congressional Committee. This is to get House Republicans in Congress to displace the Democrat majority. This is insanely good for Republicans. State-level Republican groups are also fundraising off of Democrats' efforts to impeach Trump, with the Nevada Republican Party selling a shirt that says, "Impeach this," over an image of the 2016 election map. Of course, Democrats are also turning impeachment into a chance to raise money. ActBlue, the company that processes a majority of Democratic online donations, said it brought in 4.6 million in donations on Tuesday, one of its largest fundraising days not tied to a Democratic debate or monthly deadline. Less than the Republicans, but still a lot. So look, just because I'm talking about Trump doesn't mean there's not good news for Democrats in rallying up their base. This has been good for them in a lot of ways. For one, support for impeachment is up. Oh, that's the wrong one. We'll get to this story in a second. I lined these up improperly. Here you go. Support for Trump impeachment rises 12 points in a new poll. A new Hill-Harris-X survey on Friday found support for impeachment proceedings against Trump has risen 12 points compared to a similar poll conducted 3 months ago. Now listen, I know a lot of people challenge polls, but I have used the original Harris-X poll in the past to show there isn't support for Trump. There isn't support for impeaching Trump. Operating off that assumption from this other poll where I've shown it's not popular to impeach the president, we can now see relative to this, it's becoming more so. It's flipped. You now have 47% supporting impeachment, 42% opposing impeachment, with 11% unsure. Now, here's what's significant. This wasn't Trump's base. These were unsure people who may not have liked Trump in the first place, but didn't know. Check this out. They say, should Democrats in the House of Representatives begin impeachment proceedings against President Trump? Unsure, don't know, was 20%. So about 9% of that 12-point gain came from those who were unsure. And about 3% came from those who said no. Trump may have soured the moderates with the moves he's making. So the question I would have is Trump trying to get the moderates? Now, I got to admit, I've repeatedly said I won't vote for Trump. So perhaps people like me have sent a pretty strong message that we're not going to play the game, even if, look, no matter how bad the Democrats get, and I am losing faith, even with Tulsi, we'll get into that. No matter how bad the Democrats get, I don't vote simply because one is better than the other. If I don't like Trump, I'm not going to vote for him. And if I don't like the Democrats, I won't vote for them either. Now, that's bad news for the Democrats. For the most part, moderates refusing, former Democrats leaving. If Trump can't convince moderates to vote for him, but these are people he didn't capture in the first place, I don't think he cares. And I think that's why this isn't the worst thing for him. But I want to stress something else. Actually, let me do this before we get into all that. I want to show you this next, we have another poll. Public opinion poll shows shift toward impeaching Trump. Now, let me first say, hold on, I'm sorry. The latest NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll found 49% approval for impeachment against 46% who said they disapprove. That's a 10-point jump in favor of impeachment over the same survey from April, around the same time that former special counsel Robert Mueller's report on Russian election interference was released. This is bad for Trump. That's the first point. If a lot of people support impeachment, that may actually make him look really, really bad. Okay, it's bad. But here's the thing. In the end, I think it's going to be better for him for several reasons. Listen, the first thing is that will these people vote? Just because some people are saying they want to impeach him doesn't mean they'll actually get up and vote come election time. So you have to consider this. If 49%, according to PBS, say that Trump should be impeached, how many of those are voters? I'd have to imagine a decent amount are not. And they're simply saying, oh, yeah, definitely. But come election day, they're going to say whatever. But what about those who oppose impeachment? You are more likely to find that most of these people are Trump's base and are going to react in a way where I think it's fair to point out those who oppose impeachment are more likely to go and vote for the president than those who support it. There are a lot of people who hate the president who don't vote. There are a lot of orange man bad type opinions from people who in the end aren't going to show up. So it's complicated. I think on the surface, you have to recognize this is risky for Trump. He's going to lose moderates. That's what we're seeing. Those who are unsure about impeachment are now moving towards it. Well, I will stress, many of those who were unsure may have been Democrats out, because a lot of Democrats also oppose impeachment. But now it's shifting against Trump. But here's the thing. There's other reasons this could be good. One thing that many people attribute to Hillary Clinton's loss was arrogance. Everyone was so sure she would win, they didn't show up. Now you might actually have a fire under Trump's base. Exactly the point Nancy Pelosi made. Well, it was a mistake, Nancy. Congratulations. This may end up helping Trump by not just firing up his base to increase their donations, to increase by 608% donations to congressional Republicans, so the National Republican Congressional Committee. It may actually guarantee they go out and vote out of fear. I've warned about this before, that if Trump really does claim he's got this in the bag and he can't lose, Trump supporters might not show up. That's what happened to Hillary Clinton, at least many people think. This doubt is beneficial in some capacity. Now, again, I want to stress, I don't want to play this stupid game where it's like, no matter what happens, everything's good for Trump. I think this impeachment stuff was risky, and he needs moderates. And I've warned Republicans, be careful about losing those moderates, because it's those people in the middle you need. If you get too many, Union Democrats or moderates who are now saying, you know what, I just can't deal with Trump anymore, they're out. And the media is to blame a little bit for this. But in the end, I weigh everything we've seen so far. $15 million. We've got 50,000 new donors. We've got the National Republican Congressional Committee seeing massive fundraising increases. That's all really, really good. That even if Trump doesn't get reelected, or even if he actually gets convicted after the impeachment is removed from office, you get Mike Pence. And the Republicans as a whole will do better. In the end, if Trump loses, you still have the NRCC making up a ton of donations, and the Republicans are going to find a win from this. But I really think it's important to stress, arrogance and cockiness are a huge threat to Trump. His base is bigger. We're seeing a ton of people say, how can Trump lose? Even Michael Moore. You might get complacent Trump voters. So let's move on. I always want to make sure I compare what we're seeing with polls to the job approval average. Now, they're claiming 47 to 49% want to see approve of Trump impeachment. But this is actually confusing to me. Trump's aggregate approval rating has actually taken a spike upward. And it's dipped a little bit in the past few days, but it's higher than where it was. What's the date on this one? Back in August, his approval rating's gone up since then. Curious. I wonder who these people are who are in favor of impeachment. Perhaps it's because they're doing voter polling instead of all Americans. So maybe it's because they're doing all voters instead of all Americans, or vice versa. We can see that some of these polls, more than half, took place during the Ukraine scandal. So I think it's fair to say the news cycle about impeaching Trump was in full swing at least halfway through. It's possible now with this downturn, there could be bad news for Trump in terms of approval. In terms of favorability, it's static. Favorability is not job approval. It's do you feel favorably or unfavorably towards the president? And it's been fairly static. So all this talk about impeachment, I just don't see it in the aggregate polls. More people support impeachment, but what does that really mean? I don't know. Because Trump won't be impeached. That's the point. So let's think about all of these factors and why it might actually turn out to be a net positive. For one, as I've said before, Trump is absolutely willing to take some recoil damage, to cite Pokemon, right? If you get the reference. He is willing to launch an attack that hurts him a little bit if it hurts them more. So the impeachment can be bad for Trump in a lot of ways. It could fire up moderates or it could cost him votes. But if it guarantees those that got him elected in the first place show up, that may be what he's aiming for. And look, they've raised a ton of money. The polls and the favorable and unfavorable, it's not that bad. So I really don't know what the outright negative is because Trump won't be impeached. Take a look at this story. How Mitch McConnell could give impeachment the Merrick Garland treatment. It's entirely possible Mitch McConnell just tables impeachment. Seriously, that's what Politico is saying in this story. So think about this. They go through all the motions. You get 47, 49% supporting impeachment. Makes Trump look bad. But then it goes to the Senate. Not only will the Senate not convict, okay? You need, I think, a 2/3 majority to actually convict on impeachment. Impeachment is basically like indictment, right? So Trump can be impeached. Then they'll actually look over the evidence and say in favor or against. The Senate's not going to impeach Trump. That would be ridiculous. But more importantly, Mitch McConnell could just stonewall it. So what's the point of impeachment? I honestly have no idea. I really don't. Virtue signaling? Perhaps it's this simple. The Democrats are using impeachment to rally their base just as much as Trump is using it to rally his base. And in the end, it will have no bearing on what comes next. Now, I want to stress, I'm disappointed. Tulsi Gabbard the other day, I praised her for rejecting the narrative. I do not like the games being played. I'm not a fan of anybody playing any games. When Tulsi Gabbard came out and said there's no compelling evidence for impeachment, I was impressed. She has continually pushed back on the establishment and the narrative and stood on her own 2 feet. And I've supported her extensively with large donations and made many videos praising her. I'm not saying she should be without criticism. I've criticized her a lot as well. We don't agree on most policy, but there's a lot of reasons why I do like Tulsi. This is possibly the biggest disappointment for me. I think impeachment was a bad idea. I think it's playing right into Trump's hands. I think we're seeing all the benefits he's getting. I think they are smart. The Democrats are playing checkers and Trump is playing chess. You don't have to think Trump is playing 4D chess to see the Democrats keep stumbling over themselves and falling backwards. Tulsi Gabbard flips to support impeachment inquiry into Trump. Now, this gave me pause because I like Tulsi. I supported her. Why would she do this? I still believe in her integrity, but I believe she's absolutely wrong in this regard. We can't do this. Here's what she said. However, after looking carefully at the transcript of the conversation with Ukraine's president, the whistleblower complaint, the inspector general memo, and President Trump's comments about the issue, unfortunately, I believe that if we do not proceed with the inquiry, it will set a very dangerous precedent. The 2020 Democratic presidential candidate said in a statement, future presidents, as well as anyone in positions of power in government, will conclude they can abuse their position for personal gain without fear of accountability or consequence. I completely disagree with the assessment of what Trump did. I do not like his behavior. I disagree with his stance on political issues. I praise him for the economy doing better, fine. I praise him for his work on foreign policy, not going to war with Iran. Hopefully, he deployed troops to Saudi Arabia, so we'll see if I can disrespect in that regard. But I don't think what Trump did, it was, would I say Trump pushes it? Of course he pushes it. Did he cross the line? No, not really. And Tulsi held that position originally, so now I'm losing. This is why I hate supporting candidates. She added, if we allow the president to abuse his or her power, then our society will rot from top to bottom. We will turn into a banana republic where people in positions of power from the president all the way down to the traffic cop will feel it's okay to abuse their power with no consequences. This is not the kind of country that any of us want to see. This is challenging for me because I understand and agree with the sentiment. I actually have praised the massive pushback Trump has received in a lot of regards. It seems like for the first time in my life, the executive branch is getting a good hard pie in the face. But this is going a step too far. Russiagate for 3 years and now Ukrainegate? Please, I'm done with it. Criticize the president. Hold him to the flames, right? Keep him on his toes. Good. The executive branch has expanded way too much for way too long. And I like, to an extent, that Trump is facing such intense scrutiny. But the narrative isn't often about, was it right to do was it right for Trump to enter the DMZ? My opinion was that it was a good thing. It was a show of force and it put Trump at great risk, but it made a statement. Many people disagree. I believe that's the kind of conversation we should be having. Trump calling off his attack on Iran, good conversation. Let's talk policy. Let's not talk orange man bad. Joe Biden implicated in the scandal. Okay. It's a tough question. Are we going to launch an impeachment inquiry into this? This is where it's starting to cross the line. And I think it's one thing to talk about scrutinizing the powers of the executive branch. It's another thing to have years-long controversies that are fruitless and do nothing but divide this country. Look, I entertained Russiagate. I said, hey, maybe something is here. And then we'll look into it. I entertained it. Enough. Okay? All that's happening now is extreme division. So I still respect Tulsi, but this was a huge letdown. I'm disappointed, but we'll see what happens. I've been more disappointed in Yang. Okay, so you guys know that Tulsi and Yang were my big picks. Yang has said many things that I felt were off, just bad. Yang he made extremely derogatory comments about Trump being overweight and some other absurd things. So you know what? This is disappointing. The impeachment stuff to me is a big fat waste of time. And look, I'll stress the point again. While it is bad for Trump in a lot of ways, it is just marginally better for a lot of reasons. I will stress the biggest thing I think Trump gains from this is he wants to make sure his base doesn't become complacent or just sitting around thinking they're going to win. He needs some fear, and they're giving it to him. Could Trump be impeached and removed? $15 million in a couple days. It's just, So CNN has this story talking about the phases of the coming impeachment proceedings. They say there'll be an investigation, key votes in the House, the Senate takes over, and Trump awaits his fate, plus the impact on 2020. I'm not going to read through all these. I just thought it was actually a decent point made by CNN about what we can expect. But I think we're going to stop here. The Senate takes over. Yeah, no, they're not going to convict Trump. Trump may be impeached because the Democrats have the majority. But we'll see what happens, because there have been a lot of Democrats, a decent amount, who have said no. Now, Tulsi Gabbard flipped. I'm bummed, but there's still a lot of Democrats saying absolutely not. But let's do this. Because for whatever reason, Harris calls for Kavanaugh impeachment inquiry on anniversary of Ford testimony. What? Can you get... I don't even know what's going on anymore, man. You want to impeach Kavanaugh again? We were talking about Kavanaugh, then you know what? This is all that needs to be said. The Democrats are puppets on a string to the media. The media puts out a story and the Democrats dance. Trump tweets and the media dances. We can see how the game is played. What are you talking about? Kamala Harris wants Kavanaugh. I mean, what is this? I'm just so... I don't even know. I think they've lost the plot. Kavanaugh impeachment. Some people have said everything we're seeing now, it's a desperate attempt because they have to stop Trump by any means necessary. And if that means it's going to be impeachment, they're all going to do it. I'm curious as to why Tulsi flipped, because it's weird for her to come out and say it's not compelling enough. I agree, it's not. Trump he said something like, could you look into Biden? There's a lot of talk about him shutting down some investigation. People are upset about it. I think it's terrible. Okay. They were already investigating Biden. It wasn't Trump triggering the investigation. It's just so absurd. Does Trump push it? Yes. Did he cross the line? No. Well, here's the thing. Impeachment is an act of desperation from the New York Times. You get the point. I'm not going to read through this one. It's just an op-ed, but it's an act of desperation. Trump is going to win. Let me stress, as of right now, Trump's approval is actually up, okay? His favorability, static. Your impeachment has done nothing but raise him money. Raise money from Republicans. And they are now rallying their base around impeachment in Wisconsin. And then here's the one story I actually pulled up earlier. Trump's going to hold a campaign rally in Omar's district. Listen, impeachment is bad somewhat. But if Trump's approval rating is up, if they're raising more money, if they're using this as a tool, he may sacrifice some moderates, but I think he knows what he's doing. It can't be that he keeps slipping on banana peels and pulling off perfect backflips, man. I know it sounds, at this point, I was thinking this, I'm like, is this really going to be good for him? I'm like, it is. They're using it. They're rallying their base. Look, Trump will take some blowback on this, but it's going to work out for him in the end. But hey, I could be wrong. I'm not a psychic. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm a dude on the internet talking about his feelings and reading news stories. That's the best I can give you. I think it's going to work out for him. I think Trump knows how to play this outrage. We're in this weird world, and Trump is playing his hand better than Democrats. Democrats are bouncing back and forth. What are they doing? Are talking about Kavanaugh again? Come on, man. Can you focus on one thing and actually do one thing? No. I'll stress one last point when it comes to Kamala Harris. Trump raised $15 million in California in one day. In one day. Kamala Harris raised about $12 million in the entire country in the second quarter. In 3 months, she raised $12 million. In one day, Trump raised 15. Now I get it. The Democratic donations are spread out, but let me just make that clear. That was her state. That was California. Trump is on top of this game. The media bends over to whatever he tweets, and the Democrats then bend over backwards for whatever the media says. Get your act together. There's like no strategy on the Democratic side. But hey, I want to say, I could be wrong, I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world. Trump might lose out real bad on this one, so stick around. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you all then.